So Centennial Lakes is a special place. The park is the crown jewel of the park system in the city of Edina. It's a 4-season park with over 500,000 visitors a year. But it's not just the park. It's the office buildings, it's the medical office, it's retail, it's dining, and it's housing. It's truly a mixed development. And whether you come here to shop, to visit your doctor, to go out to eat, or if you live here, or you're visiting the park, you all have a special reason for being here this evening, and I'm so happy to see you here. For me, Centennial Lakes is special not just for what it is, but for how it came to be. It's not just an important part of Edina. Centennial Lakes is a historic development in terms of the country's and the world's history of urban development. This place where we are gathered is a first of its kind mixed-use development that turned out and changed the urban planning world on its ear. Centennial Lakes did not happen by accident. A special group of people from public and private partners came together, and they worked collaboratively for years to bring this complex and beautiful place to life. I'm looking forward to hearing their stories tonight as they share their recollections with you. But first, I know there are many people in the audience here tonight who also played a role in the development of Centennial Lakes. If you played any part in the development, will you please stand now and be recognized? Please. That's wonderful. That's awesome. So thank you all. We figured we would have a huge table if we had everybody speaking, but I know you all are very important to this. So thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Edina's very own Megan Newquist. Megan is with KSTP TV, and she gets up really early every morning to bring us the news. She's on from 5:30 to 7 in the morning show, and she also hosts KSTP's lifestyle show, Minnesota Live. So please join me in welcoming Megan Newquist.
Thank you. Hi guys, how are you tonight? All right, I'm gonna get comfortable for a second here, put everything away. I'm excited to be here with you. I'm excited that we're here in Centennial Lakes, which is just such a gem of this city. Centennial Lakes, I was surprised when I learned 500,000 people come to this park each and every year to enjoy it. Whether they're here for the putt-putt golf right around the corner, whether they're here for the shopping or the medical or the farmer's market, or just a stroll around the lakes, pictures for prom, that brings a lot of people out. The park is a gem, and it's right here in the heart of our city, and we're so lucky to have it. But this gem and the development that it anchors did not happen by happenstance. It is what it is today because of the vision and the hard work and the heart of so many people. And we're fortunate to have several men involved in this project with us tonight. So, if I may, in no particular order, invite up our panel this evening. We have Gordon Hughes, former City Edina manager. Come on up, Gordon, have a seat. We also have Peter Jarvis with us tonight of Laukka-Jarvis. Hi, Peter. You guys know Fred Richards, the former mayor. Welcome, Mayor. We have Tom Shirley, the former Centennial Lakes Park manager. Hi, Tom. And last but not least, John Breitinger of Cushman and Wakefield, formerly United Properties. Thank you for the treats tonight. You're going to hear from each of these men tonight about the decisions in the development of Centennial Lakes. We're hoping that you capture kind of the genius of the team in the planning and the delivering of a space that is now truly Edina's crown jewels. We're going to talk about the history of the site, the development team that was chosen, how everyone got along, because there were a lot of key players in this, the vision for the site, and if when going in there were any non-negotiables, things that the city absolutely wanted to have. How the teams worked together, and if a park like Centennial Lakes could be built today and what it would look like if it were built today. So, without further ado, are you guys ready? Sure. Are you ready? I don't know if they're ever going to be ready, so we'll just get right to it. Gordon, I think I want to start with you and talking just a little bit about this site and what was here prior to the site, and kind of what was some of the initial ideas when the site became available?
Yeah, believe it or not, Megan, this was a gravel pit, and at least when I think of a gravel pit, louder? Is this better? Is this better? Yeah. When I think of a gravel pit, I think of a big hole in the ground filled with water, and it wasn't like that at all. This was a gravel pit, but there's a big hill of gravel here, and starting in, I don't know, the 20s or 30s, the Hedbergs started to mine gravel from it, and eventually mined it down to the street level, and at that point, the gravel mining ended, and the Hedbergs then offered the property up for development, and that now the gravel had all more or less been depleted from the site. So, you know, other things before Centennial Lakes that were considered, believe it or not, were office warehouses for a site like this, other sorts of industrial buildings, and thank God that didn't happen. And instead, the Hedbergs realized that they had a wonderful opportunity, wonderful piece of property here to develop, and we were able to put together, with their help, a team involving United Properties and Warren Beck and Larry Laukka and Del Inus on the office building, or the medical office building, to see what you have today.
Was the idea of it being mixed use always part of the plan?
Certainly not always. Again, when the property though became available for development, certainly mixed use was the agreed upon use. In part because we had a tailwind created by Edinburgh just across the street, which was a similar piece of property, an old gravel mine that was developed as a mixed-use development. So that worked so well that I think everybody said, let's use that as a model, and therein the plan for Centennial Lakes development.
And Peter, with that, let's bring you in, because you were kind of the residential developer aspect of this project, and you really looked at Edinburgh and the development there, and it kind of influenced what was built and designed for this location.
Well, it certainly did to a certain extent, and the most obvious influence, as Gordy just said, was the fact that it was mixed use. When we were selected to do the master plan, I don't think the conversation about uses with Boyd Stouffer, who was the lead developer, and Warren and Larry came in very quickly after he was selected by the Hedbergs to be the prime developer. And we were sitting around a table, and it evolved in literally a matter of minutes that we would do residential, office, and some retail. And we knew we'd have a park. We didn't know exactly how large a park until, and I used to kid him, Fran Hoffman, the city engineer, attended a meeting with probably within 3 weeks or 4 weeks of us just beginning to start master planning. And he said, Peter, by the way, you know, we need 30, I think it was 33 acre feet of water to be stored on this site. Now, just so everybody understands that, one way to do that would be to have a 33 acre pond 1 foot deep. The other extreme would be to have a 1 acre pond 33 feet deep. What you have here is, and it really, the light bulb went on very quickly. What you have here is a pond that we decided we would design large enough to take the 33 acre feet of bounce. That was in the flooding stage, and we would literally hang the development on that pond. So every single parcel is on that pond, and that pond is a little over 10 acres. And when you have a huge, huge rainstorm, the hydrologists would call it the 1 in 100 or the 100-year drain, the 100-year rain, that lake will go up 3 feet. But it doesn't flood anything. All the first floors of all the development or higher than that pond will ever get, except for this year, maybe. Except for this month. In fact, I could almost say except for last week. But particularly after seeing that half-destroyed dam on the television. But I don't even think the lake got over the perimeter, did it? Didn't get over the walls? Was anybody here in the last week? Was the water over the walls? Okay. So anyway, that is the reason why the real focal point of the project turned out to be the park, because the park surrounded the pond and then the development surrounded the park. And we had developers, Boyd especially in office, Warren in retail, Larry and I in residential, that we're going to take maximum advantage of it. And as I was saying to someone last week, I think, this of course was a highly rehearsed evening. Everybody knows exactly what they're going to say and when they're going to say it.
I do.
Well, we can tell. Anyway, one of the things that I mentioned was that it was like the pond became the front door, and the roads on the north side, the north road and the south road, Park Lawn and 76th, along with France Avenue, became the back door, because all the development we wanted really to orient to the water. But the buildings were designed on all four sides. We didn't have any funny-looking architecture. And that's why it looks great from France Avenue, but looks just as great from the pond.
Peter, thank you. I want to bring in the mayor. I want to talk about this project. Certainly a project of this size, this scale, this magnitude, Fred, requires a lot of political will, right, by elected officials. So I'm curious what was important to the council at the time and kind of the role that the council and you as mayor played in this development.
Well, Megan, every project, certainly from the public viewpoint, is not any one individual. I can say without hesitation that the 5 members of the council, both before I became mayor in 1988 and then throughout the remainder of the development of this project, were a most collegial group. Unfortunately, there's not many of them yet introduced, but there is one here who was on the council starting in 1988. He's right over here. Jack, wave your hand. Jack Rice was on a council and served the city well. But what made this project, I think, from the public viewpoint, was the great collegiality that existed between the council and the developers. On the initial council, we had 3 people who had graduated from Edina High School. We had the old Roosevelt basketball coach, for those of you who might remember Wayne Courtney, the mayor that preceded me, who was a wonderful person. And we had Peggy Kelly, who was actively involved with the school and then the city council. So the council really worked well with Boyd, with Del Ennis, certainly with Peter and BRW and Larry. And I just want to add one comment to show you how much this project developed with really, a loving care by everybody who was involved. Many of you have heard of the townhouses in Bath, England. And Larry was wondering what kind of residential development he and Peter were going to do. And to Larry, any of you who know Larry, not surprised, Larry jumped in a plane, went over to Bath, England to look at the townhouses in Bath, England. It's called the Crescent. Gordon knows everything. Gordon and Kenny were very instrumental in working cooperative with the private sector so we could create this beautiful public park that's used by so many people, including many residents outside of the city of Edina. So it was a collaborative effort between the public and private sector.
Tom, let me bring you in. You were with Centennial Lakes Park. You were the manager here for 30 years, right?
I was, yes. Started in 1990.
1990. Tell us about the park and you know, what worked and what didn't work initially.
Sure. You know, most things worked pretty well right from the get-go. When we opened in 90, there wasn't much here, so I think people were a little underwhelmed by what we had. It was just this little section of park off here on the west side, and the north end wasn't developed. The south end was still basically an abandoned gravel pit. But they weren't quite sure what to expect here when they came here, but it developed, of course, over the years to what we see now, and I think people have really come to appreciate it. I think most things worked well. You know, when you develop a park like this, they tried not to be just a typical park. It was supposed to be something unique, and took a few chances on that. You know, ornamental lighting in the planter beds, things like that. That unfortunately got vandalized a little more than we had hoped, and had to make some changes on things like that. Some of the things that we had to take out stairs, we had to replace with ramps over the years, things like that. But all in all, things have worked very well. You know, did a nice job in planning.
Wasn't there a plan to have like a playground on hole 3 of the putt-putt at one point? Wasn't croquet part of the discussion early on?
Croquet was part of the discussion right away. We still have it there in a small scale. It hasn't quite taken off like we'd hoped at one point.
What was the plan with the croquet? Tell the folks about that.
You know, we'd planned to have a great croquet area, and actually we did. It was there for a number of years. The people that used it said it was like the best croquet area in the Midwest. Unfortunately, people didn't want to play croquet at that level around here. You know, the tolerance between a wicket and the ball is about an eighth of an inch, and it was a little much for most people. So. Yeah, but yeah, we had looked at a playground at one point, and that was going to go in over there, but due to some problems with, you know, the logistics, the parking wasn't over there. You had to go up and over these steep bridges that we had originally, and it was just pulled out of the plan, and we decided to do some, you know, kind of different activities that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
We're flexible as the project worked its way through. John, let's bring you in, because you are with Cushman Wakefield, formerly United Properties. Talk a little bit about Centennial Lakes and how this development really shaped future urban planning, because this was not done anywhere else prior to it being done here.
No, it was, it was a great vision, and I think that, you know, one of the things that that I've learned is that having an organizing principle like this park, and it gave great clarity to it, but also allowed for great flexibility. I mean, in 1990, when I joined United Properties, this whole project was in trouble. You know, we were in the middle of the savings and loan crisis. We were supposed to have built 1 million square feet of office, and it was, you know, hardly anybody remembers that, but it was a terrible financial crisis. And the thing, you know, was just great, because we were talking earlier about, you know, there were hotels planned here, office buildings. At one time, somebody wanted to do big boxes, and they could have all fit, but this principle-based plan around this active place really worked and spurred the promenade, which now goes all the way up to the Galleria, and has created connectivity that's allowing this, you know, commercial area to. I mean, I think when we started here, I don't remember when the car lots went away, but you know, it's pretty amazing the transformation of land use and how it's just gotten better and better. But it all really kind of radiated from right here.
And when we were talking earlier, there was a point in time when this project almost didn't happen.
Well, the project was well underway when the crisis came. But I think the other thing we learned was how, you know, Fred talked about how collegial the group was, and the Hedberg family, you know, we were buying the land from them on a contract for deed, and were in default. We had signed a minimum assessment agreement. We're on the hook for, I think it was $54 million worth of bonds, and the economy wasn't cooperating. But, and that's, I didn't have much to do with the vision, but was really involved in supporting Boyd as we worked through that very difficult thing. But strong partners and a clear vision were really important, and was actually the first project out of the ground when the economy started to move again, much more quickly than we were thinking it might. And it's just a testament to the strength of really the whole thing, but especially, strong partners all the way around.
John, one of the things in that regard that we can't overlook is how the Hedbergs stayed with us on this project. This wasn't a deal where the city or United Properties or somebody came in and just bought all the property from the Hedbergs and they went on their way. It was a very complicated transaction where properties were taken down and purchased a bit at a time as it was ready for development. And it went along rather swimmingly, of course, until we got to the whole area south of 76th Street. And if the Hedbergs were not patient as they had been, if they had not been patient, this thing wouldn't have finished up the way it did. And they were willing to be patient and wait until the market was ripe and the development could proceed. But they had to be on the sidelines for several years while that happened. And the other thing, of course, they did is they were the ones that donated the land for the park as part of this development. And I just can't underemphasize that enough, the role that they played in making this happen. So thank you, folks.
Another thing, Megan, that I think is really critical to understand, and Edina really took a very active role. At the time, and John alluded to it, and Gordon just talked about it, there was hard economic times, and it was a question of whether or not the project would proceed as designed and envisioned. The city of Edina, thanks to some wonderful fiscal responsibility and fiscal management. I know John Wallen is here, longtime city treasurer. To John's credit, to Jerry Dalen's credit, we had enough money hidden in the basement, if you will, that the city of Edina stepped in and we bought the property. And we took the property off the tax rolls, which enabled the private developers to be able to hang in there. They had no debt service. They had no real estate taxes because the city of Edina owned the property. And had it not been for that, I'm sure that we would see a different vision here had that not happened. Now, Edina is a fairly conservative town, at least it was back in my day. That's not a rap on Hovland. He's doing a great job. Where's Jimmy and the other mayor over here? I always have to acknowledge the two mayors because I have them introduce me. But in any event, had it not been for our fiscal ability to step in and take this property and hold it until the times changed where we could see the development that we envisioned, this wouldn't have happened. So I feel very good about being part of the public sector and helping to see this become the magnificent gem that it is today, utilized by so many people.
For sure. Peter, let me bring you back in. We've talked about some of the bumps. What are some of the highlights of this project from your perspective? What do you look at and say this was a smashing success?
Well, if you look at this metropolitan area, I don't think there's a project that's comparable to it. You've got high-rise office buildings, obviously, in downtown Minneapolis, some in downtown St. Paul. And you have scattered retail, of course, all around the Twin Cities. But I don't think you have anything, in all honesty, as well organized as what we find out here on this 110 acres. And as John said a little while ago, and he was dead right, when you're doing a master plan of this size, you want to try to find a focal point of some sort to orient, to function as an orientation for that person that may come to the project and either live there, work there, or shop there. And we obviously were able to accomplish that. You have to have a big project in order to accomplish that in the best way possible. And by that I mean, you think about it, even though you've got quite a commercial cluster now up in Maple Grove, a lot of it is outdoor walking, but you're crossing streets, you're doing any number of things. And we were able to build the bridge above Park Lawn over the park and the bridge at 76 over the park so that it was a true pedestrian environment for the whole roughly, well, darn near 25 acres, including the water, darn near 25 acres. And a mile and a half or 2 miles, I can't remember exactly how long that walk is around the park.
1.43 miles.
How long?
1.43 miles.
1.43, okay.
You sure?
I measured it many times.
Anyway, so one of the real highlights to me from a planning standpoint, from a master planning standpoint, is the uniqueness of the project. And back to what Freddie said earlier, I don't think it could have happened in another suburban area, not only because of the attitude of the council was a partnership as opposed to an adversary proceeding, as manifested by the mayor and his involvement in all of the meetings that we had prior to any construction starting, but also simply because of the location. Edina is a pretty strategic location for the metropolitan area, and you weren't going to do this in Inver Grove Heights. That's not a slam against Inver Grove Heights, but the market is just not there. And you can name, I think, almost still today, not quite, but almost still today, the market supremacy is still there. That's why you're going to see, whether you like it or not, you're going to see a lot of redevelopment in Edina over the next 50 years. Because a lot of what, you've already seen what's happened to what was considered a great office park called Pentagon Park, which went up in the very late 60s and early 70s, and it's coming down one building at a time. In fact, I haven't been there in a couple, 3 weeks. Maybe they're all gone. So that to me was a major highlight, to be able to work on a piece of ground with such a unique location, with all the unique players and the right attitudes and the right market.
One of the things that I didn't appreciate until years later, because it's so rare, is what Tom and his staff and now Tiffany have done in this space. I mean, all we read about, all we hear about is activation, and this space is active 12 months a year. There's the level of activity, the city's commitment to subsidizing the programming and the things that, I came, an hour before the program, and there were people everywhere. Yeah. And, there are very few cities that have that level of commitment to just quality of life and activation. And, we've tried to do this in other places.
And you know what? Don't short sell the maintenance either. The maintenance of Centennial Lakes Park is an outstanding example. Yeah. It's an outstanding example to other cities how they'd be better off if they maintained the parks they have instead of still just scrapping for land, I should say. This park is extremely well maintained. Thank God it's not the Minneapolis Park Board's responsibility.
Stunning year round.
Megan.
I did not say that.
Yeah. Scratch that from any video.
That was Gordon, and he was throwing his voice.
I said that. Megan, one of the things, and Peter might remember this, the development, it kind of gets into what were some of the challenges in designing this thing for Peter and his crew at BRW. The lake looks just like it belongs here and looks like it's the right height relative to all the buildings around it and those sorts of things. Yet, if you look at it, this development keys off France Avenue, and we all think of France Avenue as being this kind of this level road. Actually, it slopes rather significantly from the north end of this site all the way down to 494. And one of the challenges of Peter's firm when they were designing this is how do we make this lake work where it will be way below the street up on the north end, but above the street as we get down to the south end. And one of Peter, you might remember this, Peter, one of his partner's ideas was to put in a lock and dam system so that the North Park would have a dam and a lock, and the water level would drop down to the middle pond, and then there would be another one at 76th Street where it would drop down further. It'd be a little tough to skate, but
That's when we let him go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But things like that look so normal today, so natural today, really required an awful lot of work by the engineering folks and the planning folks to make sure that the development worked the way you see it today.
There's one other little secret that I bet 1 out of 100 of you might know, and I'm surprised. Are we going to have any questions?
No, so
okay.
spill all your secrets now.
No questions, sorry.
They want ice cream.
Well, I'm going to ask the question. How come the water level stays so relatively constant? Well, remember, this was a sand and gravel pit. And if it weren't for the liner that is underneath that pond, there wouldn't be a pond, because the water would just slowly percolate right through the sand and the gravel and keep going all the way to China. But it's one of the most challenging projects that I have ever been a part of, where you had a body of water this big that a liner was installed, and to my knowledge, there hadn't been a major leak.
We've had no leaks.
Yeah,
No?
yeah. And so absent that liner, there would be no lake. So don't always criticize plastic. There are some things it's good for.
Megan, another thing, another aspect that should be mentioned, we taxpayers are always worried about how our money is spent. And people look at this facility and say, wow, you must spend a pretty penny of city revenues to maintain this park. Thanks to the creativity of many people, and this excludes the elected officials, because it was our staff that came up with the idea. We created, and why it was so important that we stick with our vision, we created a situation whereby the office space would be charged so much per foot per month as a fee to be paid to the city of Edina for the purpose of funding and maintaining the park facility. That went on for 30 years. It has now expired, I think. But what a bargain we got from the office component that was part of this development that was so critical to stay the course and not do the big boxes or the retails or the hotel. And the monies that we generated from the fees, if you will, from the office tenants went to enable Tom and his crew to do such a wonderful job they've done through the years in maintaining this facility.
I want to ask about the housing aspect, because we've talked a lot about the retail and the office space and the medical and the park, but housing was a really important part from the get-go as well for this project. And so I don't know if this is you, Peter, or you, Gordon, but talk a little bit about the housing and the importance of having that aspect of it here.
Yeah, I'll lead off, and then Peter can jump in. Housing. There were kind of three overarching desires on the part of the city, and Peter mentioned the first one being we had to pond a heck of a lot of water on this site to make it work. Secondly, as we all know, there's a traffic problem on our adjoining streets, and there were then. And one of the goals was how can we lessen the traffic burden that a development like this extends out onto the streets. The third one was housing. How can we develop at least a portion of this project, as we did with Edinburgh, with an affordable housing product that could be affordable to modest income people, many of whom worked in Edina, many of whom, as we talked about, were sons and daughters of people who lived in Edina but couldn't afford to be here anymore. And with Peter's and Larry Laukka's help, we crafted a second mortgage program that in essence defrayed and lessened the cost, the buy-in cost, more or less, of people who were buying homes here for the first time. And I think, Peter, if I remember right, 2/3 of the units in the village homes got some sort of an assistance package to make them affordable for principally first-time home buyers.
Yeah, two-thirds of the first 4 buildings, the last building didn't have any,
Right.
if you recall. And that was modeled, there was a lot of work put into crafting that concept, and it was actually more than tested to be a winner with Edinburgh. And we rolled over the program that was for Edinburgh right into Centennial Lakes. It didn't apply to Coventry, the northeast corner, and it didn't apply to the last building.
That's because Peter lives there.
Well, I did, but I just had to move out. I couldn't afford it. Anyway, the other thing, Freddie, I want to remind you of, especially since Cindy and I paid it every month, 10 or 15 bucks, that little assessment, as it should be for all of the amenities in Centennial Lakes, was also assessed to the residential on a per unit basis and every square foot of retail, not just the office.
One of the errors we made, not charging Peter and Coventry, it's so beautiful, we should have charged him more per month.
You know, one of the things too on the housing element with these second mortgages is people ask, well, where did that money go when it was repaid to the city as a loan? And the city established something called the East Edina Housing Foundation, which I think is now the Edina Housing Foundation. Monies then went back to that housing foundation, and to my knowledge, they're still being used today to help provide affordable housing elsewhere in the community. So it's a gift that keeps on giving in the community. I know Jack was a charter member of that East Edina Housing Foundation, and probably some other people, and Joyce Repia up in the crowd was administered that program for many years.
John, I'm curious what was learned in building this project that is benefiting and has benefited future projects?
A lot of lessons. I think, you know, there's sort of an economic magic in getting the mix of uses right. You know, there's as far as I know, no dedicated parking for the park. So there's sort of a district parking solution, and, you know, by having daytime employment mixed with residential and recreation and retail, there are people here, you know, at all hours of every day of the week. And so, you know, that's a big part of it. I remember when, and I think the other magic is just having a place that has a heart that really people want to gather in. When I went to work for Boyd, during the workout, he had this big model in his office. I know Sherry's here, she probably remembers that it was, and at that time, you know, the office market, they were building more and more opulent buildings. You think of the Normandale Lakes projects with all the marble-clad atriums. And it was interesting when we finally started to build here, it became clear that the amenity was the place. And so I think there were many lessons about placemaking and the value that contributes. I think we learned a lot about how to phase projects, a lot of painful lessons, and frankly, you know, it's a pretty rare thing to have partners who are. you know, there was probably a moment when the Hedberg family didn't feel like we were partners, but they weren't under the gun. You know, they were able to make a decision to stay with it. The city was in a very strong fiscal position. We had a great market, but it affected every project we worked on later. You know, the financing is different now, and we've just learned that. You know, I think I was talking with Peter the last time we were together about just how important a good plan is. It's, you know, each piece has to contribute value downstream to the residual parcels to build the momentum and keep it going.
Tom, how do you program a park like this? How do you figure out how it's going to work and who gets to come into the park and who gets to do things here?
Well, sure. Well, when we initially opened in '91, we were the sister park of Edinburgh Park. And so we were fortunate, Bill Bach, who's here tonight, he was the first park manager. He actually brought over that programming staff to program here in the amphitheater. And so we got a good start on that right away, although at that time the amphitheater didn't exist, so all the programming was done in front of the Centrum building. Oh. So that became a challenge, and of course we had to deal with weather and sun, everything like that. But we pretty much figured out what was going to work right away outside. But after that, we started to look at the different areas that we were given, say the lake, and that became an ice skating rink. Edina is known for skating and hockey, and so this actually became a great skating area, and we rent skates, that sort of thing. And it's actually the largest skating area now in America, 10 acres. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it gets real popular. Yeah. And we did things like we worked with the DNR to stock the lake. We put in northerns, bass, sunfish, things like that, and then worked with them to do kids fishing programs. And we looked at a lot of other communities and what they're doing and tried to bring things in here and see what might work. We've done things out on the lake, like we had a lumberjack show where people would actually roll logs and that sort of thing. And you know, we're always open for suggestions, so we get a lot of them from the community, what to do.
Did you ever think that May and prom season would lead to like the busiest days of your life out here?
Yeah, that was a hectic time, that's for sure.
Every May, right? Like every school.
And it's the surrounding area, Burnsville, Lakeville, I mean, they're all coming up here for their prom pictures, which is a great compliment to the park, the staff, and everything that these guys have done.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're running close to being done on time, but I don't want, if you guys have things in your craw that you think are important to mention, I don't want anything to be left out. So, Peter. No. I know there's a lot up there. If I were to give you 3 minutes for a final thought, what would your final thought on Centennial Lakes be?
I have 3 minutes.
All right, Gordon, you go first. Let's let Peter think.
My bride and I are big fans of the band concerts here on Monday night. You know, they're great. So we always come out, and frequently we go for a walk around the lake on our way back to the car. And one of the things that amazes us, we're not linguists, but one of the things that amazes us, if we were linguists, to catalog the number of different languages that we hear as we walk around. And to me, that is an unexpected and I think delightful thing that has happened here, is that it has become so attractive to so many different cultures. We never would have predicted anything like that when this park was being developed, and it's a wonderful byproduct of the environment here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Peter?
Well, it's a hard question, really, to narrow it down even to a minute.
I'll give you 3.
But that's worse. Anyway,
worse.
I would say this. The thing that is really quite satisfying to me when I look back over everything that happened, and in particular with the people that made it happen, It's a very flattering comment for this city. It really is. And I can't stress enough the fact that the nature of the public-private partnership, with Boyd Stouffer leading United Properties, and Larry leading the housing element, and Warren leading the retail element, and in the city leading, putting all the elements together, and me all by myself doing the master plan. not quite, but it was an incredibly satisfying experience. And I think it was that for everybody, don't you, Fred?
I do. The thing I would add is the importance of planning. I think the city of Edina, going all the way back to Sam Thorpe and the old country club in the 1920s and all through the years, one of the hallmarks of this city, from my perspective, is that it plans and doesn't simply act or react. And once you do it, you follow the plan, which the city did here, and then you maintain what you have and don't let it deteriorate. And Mayor Hovland and all those that come after us, Jim and Denny, let's hope the city keeps that vision and maintains this park system that's really second to none in the United States as far as I'm concerned.
Agree. I was going to ask you, John, if you remember the first city that called you to ask about this project and kind of how you did it.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've been pretty deeply engaged and worked with Gordon at the Urban Land Institute in advising cities. And so we sit in these groups of elected officials and staff and you know, listen to them dream. And you know, this is what they want. This and 50th in France. And I don't remember the first city, but it comes up over and over and over again. And I think it's, you know, one of the things we talk about a lot when Gordon left the city, he spent a lot of time advising other cities, is how important it is for elected officials and professional staff to come together with a vision and to be able to listen to the market, and that worked remarkably well through this process. And the fact that we were able to get through one of the most difficult economic crises of all time was just amazing, and it's pretty rare. But the influence of these projects has been felt not only across the metropolitan area, but really across the country.
Anything you would do differently today?
You know, I think one of the greatest testaments to a good plan, and I think, Peter, this was a great plan, is that we've already seen redevelopment. You know, I don't know if you remember, but there was a multi-screen theater over where Pinstripe and the Container Store are. I don't think so. I think the plan evolved as it went along. What was originally envisioned for that office was the marble-clad stuff, and really the activity and the draw of this place became the amenity. And those buildings are actually pretty basic, and they've performed consistently, for the last almost 30 years, better than any in the market. So I don't think so. I think, this has been great, and I hope that other cities look at it and realize, it's worth working together to make great things happen.
Tom, I'm going to end with you. I mean, I always like to ask people who maintain properties like this that people come to and enjoy and are in awe of. What's your favorite part of this park?
Oh, favorite part would have to be the amphitheater here. It is.
Good answer. Okay.
Just so nice to see large groups get together here and enjoy a beautiful evening like this.
Yeah.
And just family oriented. Just everything that this park is about is right here.
Any memories of your 30 years working at this park that stick out to you?
Well, I did get married in the Centrum building.
Okay,
there, so
that's a good
I have
answer.
to mention that one. You know, the biggest ones are just probably the ice skating in the wintertime. Just
Yeah.
love coming down here myself with the kids, all that.
What about the boats? When did the boats come? These little motorized boats that are
Yeah.
cruising all around.
You know, Bill Box started the Edina Model Yacht Club back in '92, so those guys have been around for a long
yeah.
time now, and they are here almost every week, and I think they number about 150 members at this point. So.
Jeez, wow. All right, well, gentlemen, did I miss anything? Is there anything you guys are thinking, oh my gosh, you didn't ask about this, Megan? Anything that you want to add before we wrap things up? Wow. All righty then. Well, we appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. I'm going to send it back over to Councilmember Carolyn Jackson now. Here you go.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you, gentlemen. This has been a wonderful journey to hear your stories, and I'm so glad that we got you all together, and for everybody who came and showed up. I have to tell you, last week, former architect and artist Mark Swenson, formerly with BRW, one of the architects of this area, stopped by City Hall, and he said, you know what, I've been drawing different places around the Twin Cities, and I've been drawing Centennial Lakes. So I've got a drawing here, actually, of this bridge that you came over to get here this evening, and with the help of United Properties and Centennial Lakes Office Park, we've got one of these for each of our panelists, and we'll show you. It's a beautiful picture, and Tom, they've got ice skating. So, and we're just so pleased to be able to do that. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm so pleased to see such a nice crowd, and I'm really pleased to share this story with you. So go out, have a lovely evening, get some ice cream if you haven't already. Oh, yes, and of course, I would like the Hedberg family to stand, please. I want to acknowledge their tremendous patience and gift of this park, and I'm so very grateful. It's just an incredible legacy that your family has given our city, so thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight. Take care.